previously or
private road. Well,
live. Okay, we're waiting maybe a minute more. The health department rep is coming up.
Yeah. I said, that's private road in the subdivision. It's where the old railroad used to run. Oh, nobody ever told us that. I said, we own the right of way here in County, Porter County.
Okay, it's 9:06 in the morning. Everybody is present. Committee members are present. Kelly Cadwell sitting in as alternate for Dave Champion. Welcome everybody to the April 2nd, 2026 Development Review Committee meeting. We have 3 cases on the docket today. We'll start with case number DP 2026-4. A Mulch Depot Inc., care of McMahon Associates Inc., 910 U.S. Highway 30, Valparaiso, Indiana, in Center Township. It's currently zoned I3, heavy industrial, 13.38 acres, and they're here in front of this board today for development plan approval for the proposed 3-story unit buildings. And before I turn it over to you, we got quite a case file on this. This project goes back a few years.
It's a legend.
So if you could introduce yourself and your name and address and state your case.
Good morning, everybody. Kevin Koros and Associates, 952 South State Road 2, Valparaiso, Indiana, here on behalf of Charlie Young from Reeds Nursery, who is here to my left. He can also put any answers that I may not give. As Dago clearly stated, this property is at 910 U.S. Highway 30. It is zoned I3, and as stated, this does have quite a bit of history on this. So back in February 19th of 2020, we achieved a BZA approval to install 3 of these storage buildings on this site because this is an I3 zoning. That was a special exception for that, as the zoning didn't allow for that. The allowance was for 3 buildings. The overall intent is to zone the I3 back to an I1 to install the rest of the, I believe, 25 total buildings on the site, including the entirety of the infrastructure. Partial infrastructure will be installed as part of these 3. There is a pond that releases to the south ditch that will be included with that. The DRC had officially approved this on September 1st of 2021. We have blown through our 3 years of inactivity, thus requiring the resubmittal of the project, which was done in March and was quickly responded to by the county. Obviously, a lot of history there, so previously approved, there wasn't a whole lot to do. I quickly received letters of performance from Dave Champion and Susan Hale. Dave Champion's letter of approval came on March 16th, and Susan's came on March 18th. Dave did mention 3 small cleanup items. I'm sure you guys have not had the chance to look at what I delivered yesterday. It was pretty late, but I just cleaned those up anyway. I did also speak with Dan Boyd on some of the septic stuff, and Dan to confirm there is well and septic out there. We found it, we see it, and my new updates make the call outs for the properly removal for those as well. Again, I'm sure you guys probably haven't seen them yet, but they're in your hands, hopefully, at this time. So the goal here is to get these 3 buildings done, kind of get this established, and then go through and finish the zoning and get this whole site built out. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys for any questions. We'll answer them the best we can, and we can go from there.
Maybe before we go to the other board members, just a clarification. So you're not asking for zoning at this time?
We are not asking for zoning at this time. That will come in the near future.
So you're putting 3 buildings in?
As allowed on February 19th, 2020.
Then, as you want to grow and expand, you'll rezone and put the same kind of buildings in?
Same thing, yep.
And then
there's 25 total, I believe, and these will be the first first 3 out of them.
Very good. All right, thanks for clarifying. Okay, we'll go to staff first. Dan, you're first.
Like Kevin mentioned, I did a little bit more research and looking into old files, and I did find a septic system and a well that was put in the property back in the 70s. In the previous time when he was here in 2021, they said there was no septic there, and I didn't have access to the file at the time, so I didn't find it, and I've since found it. But I had asked him to put notes on there that it needs to be properly abandoned, and I need to receive evidence of that. So I need like a invoice that the tank was pumped out, and then that it was collapsed in place or removed or whatever. When you go to do the work on the property, that will be something that will be required to be submitted to the health department.
It was not anywhere near where the hand drawings were, but it was there by the trailer.
I mean, it's 70s drawings, so I mean, I don't know how accurate they are, but that is all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Kelly?
I mean, I would defer to Dave Champion's review on this and his conformance letter. There were a couple items on there. We'll check those. I think one of them had to do with the skimmer.
Yep, and that's on there now as well.
Okay, great.
The new revised sets.
All right, awesome. And I do think you did make an application for your ESC, your erosion control permit. Did you do that?
Yes. Yes, I do. And Monica should have that, I think. It was the let me rephrase that. It was the original one that was done from before. So I don't know if a new one needs to be completed or not. If so, we'll get.
I mean, we can revisit that. We'll look into that. But for sure, you would want to have that and certainly have that permit issued, and then set up a meeting with us so we could be on site before you do any earth moving.
Great.
Right. Once you kind of the dust settles from all of this, just get in touch with us. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kelly. Kevin?
Thank you for following up on the well. We discussed that a couple times before.
Yeah.
And I was kind of a little bit familiar with and knew that somebody had been living on the site at one time. Suspected as much. My suggestion for the septic system is just remove the tank so nobody falls in the future rather than trying to fill it. It doesn't become an obstruction to your future construction.
They will for sure be removed if they're actually in the area of the pond.
And that's my suggestion.
Yeah.
Safety and if you're putting a building there, of course, that's always where you're going to put your footings or pilings. That's just a pain. As far as I recall, the last time we met, one of the issues I had was some kind of agreement with your neighbor for the entrance that's south of the right-of-way. That all got recorded, I believe.
We did talk about that. We had created some exhibit for that. I will need to get back to you if that actually did actually get recorded.
That's what I'm thinking. I didn't see it, but I thought it had. But could you verify?
I got it right here. It's verified. So book 38, page 65.
Great.
So that's in there. That was an existing easement. I think when we had first talked about that, we didn't know what was there, and after some research, I think you and I did some research on that, and we found the actual book and page of the perpetual ingress easement. So that is noted on the plans as well.
This is what I'm talking about.
That's the
right away. They come on the drive.
Yes, I know.
Oh, I know. This entire area is the E. So 3865.
Right.
Which is
Anything else, Kevin?
No, David's gave a letter of conformance. He'd make it clear he did give approval, but he gives conformance letters.
Correct.
With what he does, and I'm satisfied with that. So, and you made it clear that you're not asking for rezoning at this time. It's just for the site plan.
Right.
Good.
Anything else?
Nope.
Thank you, Kevin. Martin?
I was just gonna kind of ride the coattails of Kevin's comment for the easement agreement there. That book 38, page 65 that you called out.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a big blanket easement for all that area to access 30. But it doesn't specify really what's allowed to be built within it. I think that something more formal with the neighbor would be in line, just for, since you are going to be building some of the infrastructure in there, the gate and everything.
Right.
Just make sure they agree with that. I know that AmeriGas already put their fence in it as well. It seems like it's in line with it, but just getting it in writing with that parcel owner.
Okay.
3 or 4 years ago when we talked about it, I was concerned that AmeriGas would be a good neighbor, that somebody else might buy out AmeriGas, and they wouldn't be so easy to work with. So
Right.
that's really my strong suggestion, is just have something formal specific to your need and their need.
And then additionally that have you confirmed with NDOT just the condition of the driveway and how you're going to be using the property?
Yeah, so I knew this question was going to come up, but I didn't have a chance to fully review it the way I wanted to. But there was communication with NDOT on this, and we made an argument with them. The deceleration lane that would have needed to be installed would have been extremely short due to the existing wetlands that are kind of on west of AmeriGas there. And the amount of ditch rework that would have had to go with that is quite frankly within the right-of-way area that they have. I would have to go back to my correspondence to see what we came out with, but I did have all that conversation with Gary at that time.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I wish I was more better prepared for that answer. But we did go through the exercise, and whether it's email correspondence that has to go back and provide, we did go through that process of meeting with them to see what was going to be required.
Okay. So I'd say just getting us something stating that NDOT is aware of and approves the use of that driveway for the use you have proposed, because they do control. We don't approve permits for this area. It's NDOT maintained, so I just want to make sure that we have something from them stating that the use in the current location is what's approved.
Yeah, and I can get the fair back on that and have to find that.
So to clarify, Martin, you're asking even to use the existing drive to get their blessings.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for the use that's proposed.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Any other board members have any questions, comments? Very well. This is an informal approval. Or no, it is approval. Formal. Does someone want to make a motion?
Move that we approve conditional upon ESC permit verification or renewal as appropriate, an agreement with the neighbor being recorded, and coordination with NDOT being shown to our office.
We have a second, Kevin. Any further discussion?
Oh, did you say get documentation for the closing of the well as well?
And documentation, and revise the motion for documentation of closing the well and invoice to Dan for the abandonment of the septic as well.
Do you accept that, Kevin? Okay. Any other comments? We'll do a voice vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kevin.
I said anytime. Let's do this every 3-4 years.
Oh, we know we still have one more time. That's the reason.
That's why. Let's do it sooner than 3 years.
And Martin, just for my record, I didn't write it down. What was that last about the septic?
Just giving Dan documentation that it was abandoned, pumped out and abandoned, an invoice or something like that.
Okay. All right. The next case, VOE 2026-1. The applicant is Rodney L. Noel. 316-1 North, 625 West, Valparaiso, Union Township, zoned rural residential. Acreage is 3.13 acres. This is an informal review requesting to vacate existing ingress, egress, and utilities. Mr. Noel, if you could come up to the table, and we'll go easy on you.
Okay.
Maybe you could state your name and your address and what you're asking for today, and then I'll help you out with it for the board.
My name is Ron L. My address is 316-1 North, 625 West, Valparaiso, Indiana, 46385-19. Asking.
Could you bring your microphone
That
right in front of you?
Off. Would you press that button down in front of it? Right there you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Got it now?
Yeah,
Okay.
you got a soft voice.
Not really. I'm trying not to yell because my wife says I talk too loud. I'm here to ask for the property that you have there in your records, that the ingress and egress for utilities be vacated, because 54 years ago when we acquired this property, that ingress and egress was established for the purposes of utilities. And because this was all family that was going to be out there, we decided to put the property on the driveway and all the utilities on the other side of another property that we have. And so therefore, there has never been, nor is there now, ever had any kind of utilities in this particular spot that is listed for it. And so therefore, I'm asking that it be vacated so that should I want to put, I don't have any plans at the present time, but should I want to put a little shed or something next to that, they won't allow me to do it within 65 feet of the edge of the properties to my neighbors. So this is what I'm asking for to be vacated.
Mr. Noel came into the office. We did talk to him. He is correct. They had a 2-lot subdivision done a few years ago, and there's a lot directly behind the lot next to the road, and this access agreement for vehicle access and egress, ingress, plus utilities put in so it could service that back lot. Since that time, they've worked together. They have an agreement for a driveway to the north of the property where all those utilities and the egress serve not only the lot behind you, but the one to the north of you as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. There's 4 homes back there. They're all family. I own 2 of them. And the driveway that was put in the very beginning that has never been changed, all we did was asphalt it. And since then, I have had a surveyor come out and survey the driveway. We had a attorney from Chesterton draw plans to make this a permanent right-of-way for everyone, so that if the houses would ever get sold or anything, no one can change that. Those are permanent driveways for everyone that lives out there.
So to correct you, it's not right away.
Oh, excuse
I
me.
think what you have is an access agreement
Access, okay.
for people. Yes.
I'm sorry for the terms that I use.
Well, that's what remember you and I started off that.
Yes, I agree.
We were not on the same page.
And since then, we've had NIPSCO come out and demonstrate that all of the utilities are north. There's nothing on this property at all whatsoever.
And we do have a picture of the file of the flags or absence of flags.
And I do have the green copies and the certified copy of the letters that I sent out.
Very good. Dan, any comment whatsoever?
So you're creating new easements as part of this?
No.
No, it's just you're vacating the
Just
existing.
vacated.
Okay, I was just asking because on the application it said replaced by new filed easements. So I was just curious about those, because if those new easements were created, I was curious if you located the septic and stuff to make sure that they weren't in those new easements.
If what now?
So if you were creating new easements, because on the application it says replaced
I'm
by.
not creating any easement.
Okay, that's why I'm asking, because on the application it says replaced by new.
It was replaced legally on the north side.
Okay.
So that can't be changed. So that should any of the houses fall out of the family, and somebody else would buy these houses, they can't stop us from going to our own home.
Right.
Been out there.
Maybe to add clarity to that driveway was there before most of those homes were there.
The driveway originally was put in approximately 1971, 54 years ago.
Okay.
When my brother-in-law built his house.
All right.
I built out there in 72, and approximately 73, my father-in-law built his house, and eventually my son built out into the back. So
Yeah, I was just asking about the new easements because that was on there. Because if you created new easements, if depending on where they were at, if they were where your septic field was or the septic field for any of the houses, they can't be in those easements. So I was just making sure that was the issue.
This was the original road that was originally put in and was
Okay.
approved and everything.
All right, that's all I have.
Kelly?
For clarity, you're vacating an access, like an ingress egress easement. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Ingress, egress, and utility.
And utilities.
For utilities.
I'll show you here.
Yeah, from a stormwater review, I guess I would say we don't have any comments on that.
No further comment.
No further comment.
Thank you. Here's the easements here. He's got a shared agreement with the whole board.
And that's just one confirmation of it. Nobody's going to be denied access or use for utilities that back them now. They're not.
They come another way north of the property.
You're pretty much subjected to an easement that got created by, I will just say got created because the ordinance more than anything else for this minor subdivision. So that's what you're.
Okay, Martin.
I guess that's my question. This is me just kind of wondering if that easement was created to access that back lot, doesn't the access need to stay within the control of the subdivision? I thought that was in the UDO. I'm not positive.
We didn't take that position because the existing drive came to the north and they got their access through this way instead. And they do have a firm agreement that he tendered and put in there, which binds all 4 parcel owners to the maintenance and care of that driveway.
Okay. Yeah, if the access to that lot doesn't need to be maintained within the limits of the subdivision, then I don't have any comment either way from the highway engineering perspective. I mean, there's no new driveway going in. Nothing's changed in there for me, so no other comment.
Very good.
My only suggestion, and I always give the spiel on minor subdivisions, private drives, have some kind of formal agreement about maintenance, upkeep, snow plowing.
What's that?
They do have that.
They do have a driveway agreement.
Easement agreement and declaration
between all 4 people.
Okay.
You see, agreement declaration.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I can bring it up in mine.
Any other questions by the board?
Make a motion that we approve the vacation.
Well, actually, this informal review's got to go to the Plan Commission. So,
The recommendation. A favorable recommendation.
what's the date of the Plan Commission?
April 22nd.
So you'll be on the agenda April 22nd at 5:30, this same room. And the Plan Commission will hear that, and they'll vote on it, and you can walk out with no easement.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Principal.
I don't have any of the green cards back yet, but I will get them to you as soon as I can get back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And the best for last. There's three separate cases. We're going to hear them all at the same time because it involves three separate parcels, all either adjacent or across the street from one another. And this is, the first case is ZO 2026-9, ZO 2026-10, ZO 2026-11, and I may not spell his name. Is it Naturian?
That's correct, yes, sir.
I did
Naturian.
Pronunciation.
That's totally fine.
Naturian West LLC, and they're located north and south of 1500 North, approximately 0.3 of a mile east of 500 East, with an address in Michigan City, Indiana, Pine Township. Current zoning is rural residential. Total acreage of the three parcels is 146.79 acres. Today is an informal review. They're asking to rezone the three parcel land to Greenway District, GW, to allow for the Old City Light wetland restoration. And if you could state your name, address, and the purpose of your visit.
Yes, sir. Name is Lyndon Graber. Address of our office is 248 Southwoods Center, Columbia, Illinois, 62236. And the reason for our visit is to propose a rezoning of 146 acres in Porter County to Greenway to allow for the restoration of Old City Light North and South wetland mitigation banks.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you tend to do there? This is going to be somewhat of a business or something like that?
Yes. So we are in the business of developing wetland mitigation banks, which I'm not sure what the committee's experience with that is so far, but in general, we serve as a permanent offset to impacts to federal and state jurisdictional aquatic resources, wetlands, and streams. So whenever developers such as NDOT or otherwise have to impact wetlands, they have to offset that impact. There's a requirement from the Corps of Engineers and often from the state of Indiana in this case as well. We provide that offset by providing for restoration in the form of what's called a bank. So a large piece of property that is restored and permanently protected with a permanent conservation easement. And so that site will generate credits that can be sold to offset those unavoidable impacts from developers such as NDOT. So that's what we're in the business of doing.
And have you sold a bunch of credits already? And how long do you think this will take to fill out?
We have not sold any credits yet. So we've received, so far to date, the work done on the property is we've received from the Corps of Engineers the permit, nationwide permit number 27. So we've got full approval from the Corps of Engineers for the project. They consult with other federal and state agencies as well in an interagency review team called IRT. So IDEM, IDNR, EPA, and others sit on that committee. They've all approved this project. We've also received our Section 401 water quality certifications from the state of Indiana for these as well. And so that all happened in about November, December of last year. And we purchased the property in January of this year. I believe January is when we closed, maybe February, but we own the property now. And so we're just now getting underway. So we haven't done any restoration activities yet. Those are planned for this summer to do the restoration, which the restoration here is going to involve essentially some low-line berming and some ditch plugs to help restore hydrology. Right now, it is currently ag, and so it's got a bunch of surface ditches and otherwise that allow for getting water off the property. Historically, it used to be a wetland, and so that's the kind of properties that we look for to restore. So we'll put in some low-line berms to fill in some ditches and do some ditch plugs to restore some seasonal saturation. It's not going to be open water, unvegetated or anything. It can't be. And the primary habitat out there is going to be emergent wetland, sedge meadow, and wet prairie, which is essentially like a herbaceous vegetative wetland. So all of that work will commence this summer. So.
Very good. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll go through questions. Dan, you probably don't have many here, do you?
Not many. It's just there are some houses there, and those houses would be on septic systems in terms of their wastewater disposal. I mean, they don't look like they're newer homes, so I don't know quite how old those systems would be, but they would have to do replacements, and we could most likely work around that if there was any other. But yeah, I don't have much. Really.
Go back a question. I'm intrigued by it. So if they make it a wetland, they're going to raise the free water table and maybe impact their.
I mean, I don't know what the water table is there now, so I mean, I don't know how much it's going to affect it. I mean, that area does tend to be kind of wet up there, anyways, so it probably has a shallow water table. You know, I mean, we do subsurface drainage around septic systems and everything, so. And they are existing homes, so if they did have a system that went into failure, the code gives us best judgment on repairs, so we can make concessions to the code to get a functional septic system in there. So, yeah, I mean, it's just hard to say exactly what the impact's going to be, 10 years down the road or something from doing this. So, yeah, that was my only thought was, there are some houses there, but, I mean, looking at the topography and stuff, those properties seem to, the houses are higher in elevation than where you're doing the work. So, I mean, I think it'll be all right, but.
Okay, very good. Ellie, you did get some eyes on this early on. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. So I was curious, are you building are you proposing any structures?
No, ma'am, no structures. So, and also the easement that we'll place on the property prohibits any permanent structures. It prohibits roadways. It prohibits ag. It prohibits essentially everything. It'll be a permanent green space. It won't be all 146 acres. The bank itself is about 106 to 108 acres, and it's a surveyed boundary, and it's in the lower lying areas. So it also can't intersect with any other encumbrances or easements. So there's some NIPSCO easements and some other easements that we have to work around that we're not going to be encumbering. But essentially, the easement is going to prohibit any sort of development or otherwise on that property.
But you did say you're going to do some berming and some modification of plugging of the water that's coming in or leaving or.
Correct. So there's some surface drainage right now, and so that's what our IDEM Section 401 water quality certs are for those berms. So those are essentially state protected isolated waterways, and so they've approved that as part of our engineering plans and our erosion control plans. It's about on one of them it's 30 linear feet of an unnamed tributary to Carver Ditch with 8.06 cubic yards of material. That's on the north bank, so the north side of the road. And on the south side of the road, we'll have 2 ditch plugs there, and they'll impact a total of 0.01 acres of stream bed and 60 linear feet of stream bank.
So I would add that, there is significant floodplain out there, so you will need to get your approval through I don't know if it's IDEM or DNR, the sign off to do work in there if you're going to be moving within that area. And my guess is they're going to want to just know that you're changing the hydrology in there anyways. And then the last thing, if you're working along Carver Ditch, that is a legal drain.
Correct.
So you will need permission to do all of that. So what I would say is, once your rezone is, if that becomes successful, you're going to want to get those plans into us, which I think you may have already, or some other engineering firm may have submitted. But we'll certainly stormwater management will look and development, the engineering of that, we'll look over that and to see what other items might be applicable.
Okay.
The floodplain and the legal drain, those are kind of 2 big ones.
Yes, ma'am. So to address those 2 items, the floodplain, so IDEM has reviewed it, and so that's what we've gotten our 401 water quality certifications for both of the work that will be done in that floodplain already. And then
IDEM.
Yes, and then for the legal drain, you are correct. We opted to just stay off of it. So the easement that's currently on that legal drain, our easement doesn't overlap or intersect with that at all. So we won't be doing any work that would impact Carver Ditch or the legal drain that is offset from that, or I guess the easement that's offset from it.
But maybe go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say, so are you saying that none of your berming or your sweeping will take place within the legal easement of Carver Ditch. Is
That's
stating?
that's correct. Yes. Mhm.
So 75 either side of the top of bank, you won't be.
Yes, sir. That's correct. Yeah. Our survey stays off of that. Yes.
And then back to the floodplain, what did DNR say? Did they say it's not necessary? Did you check in with DNR as far as the floodplain?
Yes. So DNR sits on the IRT, and so they, with the approval from the Corps of Engineers, the DNR is also a signatory to that agreement as well. It's called a mitigation banking instrument. So the DNR, their representative for mitigation banking, has been a part of the review process for the last 2 or 3 years, and they've signed off on the project as well.
But was it specific to the floodplain though? Were they aware?
Well, is there a floodway going through the property, right, where you need a construction and floodway permit, right?
Correct.
Was a waterways inquiry request made through the state system?
I'll have to check on that. What is the exact terminology? I'm sorry.
That would be DNR water construction in the floodway.
Okay.
If you look up Indiana waterway inquiry
Mhm.
request, that'll bring you to the main page where that's kind of the starting gate for that coordination.
You may not need it. You just got to check in.
Right.
Okay. And it was called DNR water.
It's
Construction and floodway.
Construction in the floodway. Okay, I'll check with our engineering firm and see if they've already done that. So
Because DNR, a different branch of DNR may signed off with.
oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah, the regulatory side.
So
I know.
specifically, you got to ask
Okay.
construction and floodway information.
Okay, thank you.
Good catch, Kelly. Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Kevin.
I think you're fine with construction floodway, but you still need confirmation and communication. You've got legal drains, as Kelly referred to. We don't want you extending your wetland preservation into the easement. We need access to both sides. My concern from the water side would be that we have a lot of wetland animals, muskrat, beaver, that will be back and forth between your wetland and our ditch. But we also have to maintain our banks
Mm-hmm.
in order to make sure that the regulated drain works well for the neighborhood. Part of my concern is we have highway drainage coming off through this parcel and to the south. And we need to make sure that's maintained as well.
Okay.
What's good about this is I think it's a water quality feature that will help improve the water quality locally as well. And my biggest concern would be that house at the north, right up at the northwest corner of this, that they're a little bit lower, and the seasonal high water table could be brought up unintentionally by putting a water feature to the south of it. We want to make sure that you don't drown out their septic field.
Okay.
Or, God forbid, maybe they have a basement. I don't know. I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what people do in the end, but we will hear about it if that happens. But highway drainage, from my standpoint, is really critical here to protect and preserve the pavement.
Okay.
If we don't have good drainage, the pavement will blow up. It'll be accident prone. It doesn't appear that there's a lot of people here, but there's a lot of people that drive this county road. The questions I have, you've got the buffer on this, which is great. It's required. It's greenway, so I believe that you won't be permitted to put other residential or commercial buildings on this without coming back in front of our boards.
That is correct. That is correct.
Who is going to be the responsible charge for the ongoing maintenance? Is that going to be your company or?
Yes, sir. That's correct. So we have to construct and then maintain and monitor the project until all the final performance criteria are met. Typically, that takes 5 to 7 years, but depends on the behavior of the site and how it develops over time. But we're required to earn our credits over time, so we don't get all of our credits up front. So So we'll be on the site for a minimum 5 to 7 years post construction. The easement itself, it will be held and enforced by Stillwater's Land Trust. They're a nonprofit in Indiana, and they hold several other easements for us for our other projects in the state. And then after our final performance criteria is met, we get a sign off and close out notice from the Corps of Engineers, at which point a long-term steward takes over the management of the property with an account that we have to fund for them at a predetermined amount. That's all set up and in place before we ever walk off the property.
So in perpetuity.
That's correct.
Be.
Yes. That firm, they serve as a long-term steward on several of our projects throughout the Midwest. They also help with a lot of our maintenance and our construction as well. So they're pretty integral to all of our operations in the Midwest in several states, including Indiana.
And that's what I was going to get at.
Yes.
We need to know more information for Plan Commission when this comes in front of us for the rezoning. To know, to have security in the fact it's not going to drop off onto the executive of the county in 10 years, 20 years. We need to protect our future government from having this, dare I say it, it's a liability. It's a great thing that's happening, but it's still a liability because it's expensive to maintain, own, and operate. Which brings me to the next thing is, have you written an operation and maintenance book for the land for the next steward, or is that available for our staff?
Yes, we can provide that. So it's pretty general and high level in nature at this point because the site still needs to be restored and we need to see what it looks like before we turn it over. But we do know what the final performance standards are and what it needs to look like. So it just depends on the level of invasives and other things like that as to what the specifics of that plan will be. But in general, that plan will include the control of invasive species, replacement of signage. So the site will have signage all around it, stating that it's got a federal core permit number and that it's a protected area of no trespassing. So any replacement of any signage, if there happens to be any issues with any of the ditch plugs that need to be corrected, then the long-term maintenance will also take care of that as well. So, but in general, it's meant to be light touch care after all the final performance standards have been met. They come by a minimum of 2 times a year to check on everything and make sure everything's fine. They also liaise with all the neighbors and make sure there's no issues there as well. So that's in general how it works in long-term management for these sites.
Do you have a planting scheme, or?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
yep.
what are you planning on planting?
So this site's got a mixture of different seed mixes and also plugs as well.
Would you give a specific, not today necessarily,
sure.
but for Plan Commission purposes, good to have a specific layout of what you propose? Part of my concern is you're in the agricultural community too, and we want to make sure we don't spread something into the farm community and vice versa that could have impact on them. The next thing is, if you haven't done it, I would suggest you get a hold of the Soil and Water Conservation District to see what kind of private drainage schemes there are on this property. Almost all of our farmland in northern Indiana have been tiled and drained out of necessity. And hopefully they have some kind of maps of it, or the former tenant farmer or the former owner has something. I would strongly urge you to get that information so you figure out what somebody might have tried. You know, some of it's evident with what we see because a lot of the tile's blown up. And then at the same time, while you're doing the hydrology, I get real concerned with these wetland areas because we want to make sure we don't have sloughing off of the shoulders of the road or the banks of the ditch to the south end. So we want to watch those water levels and make sure we have, and that's where the vegetative protection comes in too, where if we can root bound a lot of that area, that should help prevent that material from moving too much, which it is prone to do. These are hydric soils throughout the area.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Anything else, Kevin?
No.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
I think you and I might be thinking the same thing.
We had a Mo Vulcan mind.
I think so. Do you have any kind of hydrologic modeling or anything that shows the impact of what you're trying to do and how far that might reach out into neighboring properties in terms of, and I think Dan was kind of alluding to it as well. Like,
Yeah.
are you going to raise the water table, and if so, how far out, and would that impact your agricultural neighbors? That's a kind of a great.
Yeah, well, thank you. And part of my concern was the farmers to the north, east, and west, if they've got tiles coming across.
Yeah, for sure.
And you block their tiles,
Mhm.
you'll blow up their tiles, basically,
Correct.
from water pressure. And that will not be good.
Correct. I'll confirm. I believe we did a tile, like a trench, like an exploratory trench to see if there are any active tile out there now. We also checked with the prior owner to see if they had any maps. It's my understanding there's no tile out there. It's primarily surface drainage. But I can confirm that and see. But tile exploration is one of the first things that we do when we're looking at a property, because things like water trespass and blowing out neighbors is something that we have to consider. Most of our banks across the country, and we have almost 200 of them now in about 25 states, are in ag settings like this. And so that's part of what we have to do and what we have to prove to the Corps and to the IRT and to the state, that we're not going to be impacting neighbors adversely.
Yeah, as far as those tiles, often we've got to go back 40 to 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were clay tiles that were put in over 100 years ago. And
Site plan approval.
my generation lost track of them. My dad's generation lost track of them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked for them in the past.
I think David.
They're a bear to find. You probe for them, and it's just by luck
I know planning.
to find them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Unless you've got a sinkhole or a blowhole that got created because of impacts of the neighbors.
Mm-hmm. I believe they also looked for outlets as well, but I can confirm whether or not they found any. But
They'll be tough to find because we never used delineators or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I suggest the best thing maybe is if Soil and Water or NRCS have some kind. Well, in a lot of cases they have mapping available, but they consider it more private information.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to get permissions from their tenants or the landowners, the farmers. I just wish they'd release a lot of that stuff for all of our benefit, but the way it is.
Right.
Kelly, you want to add what we talked about?
Sorry, I got caught waving. Well, we were just asking if you could provide those. I believe you did submit a plan for stormwater review.
Mm-hmm.
You guys already did that?
Yes.
So if you have any of that, offsite hydrology, any of that, or you're going to get any of that, if you could submit that as well.
Okay.
We'll roll that into your review of your stormwater drainage review, and we can provide those results to the Plan Commission, to help with decision making. So if you get that to us, we'll check that out and include that in your stormwater management review.
Okay.
Because you're still going to need a site plan approval even after the zoning. So I know you guys are trying to move quickly to get the season. Geez, we're not even spring, or just barely spring.
No, we are spring.
Yeah, the season's going to be over. But yeah, anything that the board brings up from a technical perspective, I think Kelly raises a good point. If you get that submitted to us based on your input today, that will help expedite your review of your site plan, getting your site plan approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
But we're not done. You done?
I'm done.
Martin?
I mean, I'll just echo what everyone said here. Looking at the hydrologic model, where's the water going to go from my perspective? I'm a highway engineer. I'm looking at highway engineering. A right-of-way along 1500 North has a low point that's going to be along your buffer right there where you're berming. So how are you going to be routing water around the proposed area where you're detaining water. So, I would just want to see more on that and see how you're addressing the drainage course for those roadside ditches. Where are they going to be outletting? That's all that I have.
So I guess, more simply put, if hot water from the highway is dribbling on this land and they're putting, how are you going to manage that?
Exactly.
Anything else, Mike?
That's all.
We brought our MS4 coordinator in today. Do you have any questions, Eric? There's a microphone.
I have so many. um, I guess I might suggest before your planning approval and such that we maybe have a meeting to discuss maybe quite unique and large project. Kelly asked about structures. Do you have like water control structures, or is there any way to manage the levels of water? Is it just spillways? Like how are you managing like the 100-year flood scenario and such?
I'd have to consult our engineer. I mean, I'm not an engineer, unfortunately. I brought all the engineering plan sets. I believe we've submitted them as well as part of our application, but I'd have to consult with our engineer, or better yet, just have a meeting set up with you and them so they could better answer your questions.
So I have particular interest in this. I have a lot of background, spending a lot of time with programming in that area. So this is a conservation area. The river is a state bicentennial nature trust conservation corridor. The national park is over there. There's probably around 2,000 acres just in that Kemper ditch watershed. That's all protected land. You mentioned about the conservation easements and then Stillwater's managing it, but who is the ultimate owner? So Stillwater's is doing the sort of conservation easement monitoring to owner in perpetuity.
No, Naturian West, the company I work for, is the owner of record right now. Ultimately, we'll look for a good home for the property. So, what we typically do for that is usually for most of our projects nationwide, we're actually not the landowner. We have a mitigation use rights agreement with the landowner who still wants to maintain fee simple ownership of the property. And we have the rights to develop it as a mitigation bank for them. In other cases like this, where it's a really attractive property to do something like this and to put it back the way God intended it to be, we have to buy it. This actually happened to be it was originally a listed property, and then someone that we happen to know actually bought it for ag production and then sold it to us. And so we do have several properties that we end up owning like that. Ultimately, we want to get through the restoration period, the construction period, and maybe even a couple years into monitoring to make sure that it's performing the way we want it to. And then we look for a good home for it. So we typically sell these parcels for usually to either neighbors or somebody who wants to enjoy it for quiet enjoyment. And we have a whole process that we have to follow with them to walk them through the easement so they know exactly what it is that they're buying, what they can and can't do out there on the property. In general, it's usually a neighbor who ends up getting it.
Like I said, there's a lot of protected land in that area. My previous was for a local land trust that has a lot of land in that area. They're actually doing in lieu fee program wetland mitigation of about 50 acres. So I guess that would be the purpose of meeting with you, just to share knowledge, connect partners, and those kinds of things. My concern is, I have a lot of past experience with conservation easements, right? So if you're not the permanent owner in perpetuity, that could go to your neighbor, that might be great. And 20 years later, it's another guy that wants to try to extinguish the easement. Your easement, like what rights is it restricting? Structures and everything, obviously, but is it allowing for public access? Is it allowing for hunting and those kinds of rights?
Great questions. It specifically does not allow for public access. It's still a privately held property with a private easement on it. The easement is permanent and it runs with the land, so it's recorded against the property and has to run with the land. It also does not allow for subdivision of the property. So if somebody wanted to subdivide one of these three parcels and the easement was on all of it, they would not be able to. They'd have to purchase the entire thing. They would not be able to they not be allowed to subdivide that easement into pieces. and it also does not allow for the reintroduction of any other species that are not part of the original planting plan. So everything in the original planting plan is all native to and specific to the state of Indiana, this region of Indiana. So it's all native seed mix and native plugs. So invasives are highly monitored and controlled out there. So the reintroduction of invasives is disallowed by the easement as well. And there's a bunch of other restrictions that are in there as well. It's an easement that we've used all throughout Indiana and Illinois and Iowa. With
Recorded already, or it's not?
No, we haven't recorded it yet. We actually wanted to get through the rezoning process first. It's interesting. We've got, like I said, almost 200 projects nationwide. This is the very first one that zoning has actually ever come up on. So,
Is the public access thing like a required thing to not have public access?
it's required of our easement. So as the sponsor of the mitigation bank, we have to propose an easement. The Corps and the interagency review team have to approve it. We start with template easements from the Corps of Engineers that are provided by them, and we kind of work from there. And so the one that we use heavily in the Midwest prohibits public access.
So I guess my recommendation would be to think about those kinds of things, and I think the Army Corps and IDEM would be amenable to this. So in that area, you have Reynolds Creek Game Bird Habitat, you have the National Park, it's a big birding area. More and more land protection and conservation. It's sort of a hunting area in the game bird habitat, big agricultural community. I would recommend transferring it to a local land trust to hold it in perpetuity. That's going to be a lot better for us in the county as well, right? Because there's not that unknown landowner in the future that's going to be a problem. I might recommend that in your development plans for planning commission approval and stormwater approval, to think about flexibility and options for like water control structures. So if it was mentioned about like beavers and all those kinds of things, those will become headaches to us in stormwater management, and ditch management, highway management. So if there's even the ability to be like, oh, we need to lower this water table because it's impacting beavers or impacting farmers, right? So we drop down these boards and let some water out in a big flooding event or something. That would be more beneficial to us, make it a little easier on us than having to like remove riprap spillway to lower everything. That'd be just easier maintenance and management. But I'm a little confused. So you put an easement on it, it's a permanent conservation easement. Stillwater just manages that easement monitoring and maintenance, and they're responsible for infrastructure. I assume you have some sort of a permanent funding source, an endowment or something like that that's pulling from. You sell these mitigation credits and sort of benefit from that, right? And then you sell the land like USAC is making you like transfer it to a local land trust or something like that.
So a couple of points. Number one, so Stillwater's their role here is to be the grantee and the enforcer of the easement itself. So they don't have any maintenance or monitoring obligations. That has to be a different party, a third party. So we use a group called Loveless Custom. They do a lot of construction and maintenance and monitoring on several of our sites throughout the Midwest. They're an approved long-term manager or long-term steward in about 3 or 4 different core districts, including Chicago and Louisville, which is primarily what most of our projects in Indiana are. They've been vetted and approved to be the long-term manager. They are the beneficiaries of that endowment fund that you're talking about. So we have to set aside an endowment fund that is supposed to be a non-wasting, non-diminishing fund to allow them to go out and do long-term maintenance on the property after we leave. So I just wanted to clarify that first. There's a couple different parties.
Owns it and holds it, and then Loveless is like your contracting company to do required monitoring, going out and seeing it once or twice a year.
Yes, that's
cuts down trees or digs a hole or something. Who
Stillwater. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're required to go monitor the easement itself to make sure that nobody is encroaching on the actual legal, the legalities of that, of like what's allowed and not allowed on that site, right?
Thank you. Like I said,
sure.
I'll give my card. I would love to. I think that our department in stormwater would benefit from having just a
No, sounds good.
And he's in the same office as most of us sitting up here. So
Okay.
where your plans went, he does have access to those.
Okay.
Already. And he will be looking at it as we go through your site plan for
I'll be doing
approval.
control on that as well.
Yep.
Okay.
You definitely have to visit DNR with your erosion control plan. An item. I have one final question. Who's going to own fee title in this? You keep talking easements, but somewhere there's an underlying fee.
Yes.
It's a company that's owning.
So right now it's our company. We're called Naturian. So Naturian West LLC is the company that owns the land right now. For the foreseeable future, that'll be the company that owns the land. As I was explaining, at some point we'll try to find a good home for the property. We have a vested interest in the long-term ownership because we want to make sure that whoever owns it is not encroaching on the easement or causing problems out there because, as I was stating, our credits aren't released all up front. We have to earn them over time by performing. So we have a very vested interest in who actually owns the property. In some cases, and in some areas, we actually do donate to local land trusts. In other areas, we find a neighbor who is interested in using the property for hunting and for recreation. This particular property is all sedge. It's all herbaceous. It's not a forested wetland. So we have a lot of properties, for example, that are in southern Illinois that are forested wetland and they're set up really well for hunting, and that's typically like the best home for it. This particular one, given a couple things: one, the vegetative requirements that are the Corps imposes on us for performance here for diversity, species diversity, hydrology, invasives, and all those other things. It's a really high standard. The last thing we want is somebody tromping around out there and destroying vegetation or producing invasives or causing problems, because it affects our ability to generate and sell credits. So on this particular one, we're going to be very picky, I can say. It'll probably be a few years at a minimum before we try to find the right home for it. And as he was stating, it may end up being somebody like a Shirley Hines or like somebody else around here. This project was cited for a lot of the reasons that he was stating. It sits in a broader area of a whole lot of conservation. It's more of like a corridor, and that's one of the things that was very attractive to the Corps and to the state as well when we were proposing it.
We need to be careful that the easement and appurtenances don't get separated from the fee in the long run. We got burned, the Waterfowl USA, great projects, but then something happened to the national thing, and it affected us locally, where the judgment was to sell properties. Of course, they sold their Midwest properties instead of their East properties, and we ended up with private property owners on all these lands that were formerly most supposed to be habitat for biodiversity for the local benefit, and of course it's 25 years later it's gone.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah. So the easement has to be permitted, has to be recorded, and has to run with the land. In fact, on our projects, where even if it can't be subordinated to any other encumbrance, and that includes mortgage. So when we have projects with landowners who have debt on their property, their lender actually has to sign off and subordinate their position to
Right. I get that.
and has to stay with the land. This project's no different than that. In a situation like you're talking about, where say something happens before project closeout, like when I say that, it means we've met our final performance criteria. We hand it over to the long-term steward, the maintenance obligations of it, with an endowment fund for them to take care of. We have to post financial assurances. That's one of the requirements of the Corps, and it's outlined in our mitigation banking instrument. Essentially, it's a performance bond that would allow for the continuing restoration, maintenance, and monitoring of that project if something were to happen to us. So all of that has already all been approved and taken care of at the federal and state level for this project.
And like it was suggested, I support talking to local land trust.
Okay.
We have several that are really good.
Okay.
Some are better.
If I may, like, to clarify for the committee, right? Like, Naturian's going to own this property while they establish the mitigation bank, correct? And then do some maintenance and monitoring, because is required by the Army Corps, but eventually you're released from the mitigation requirements, you have your credits, and you won't be the owner anymore. We won't see you anymore, right? So for the county purposes, we are still going to be here as Porter County forever. Um, Somewhere down the line, it's going to be another landowner, and theoretically, if that were another land trust, that means it's off the tax roll. Stormwater fees may be different. I might ask that we're looking at these agreements for the people responsible for maintenance and monitoring, and whether they are like a stormwater service provider for them. From our perspective, those kinds of things are things that should be considered.
And that's a good point. There are still stormwater fees connected, even though this is a stormwater feature.
It's great that
No, that's fine.
Step it down.
for us.
We'll step it down.
Habitat.
I guess in full disclosure, you can come in and appeal in front of the Stormwater Management Board as a contributor as far as your fee goes too.
And that's fine. I mean, as a landowner, we're prepared to pay property taxes, stormwater fees, whatever it may be. Frankly, that's not what's going to make or break this project, right? And so whatever we need to do to be good stewards and be good neighbors and good residents of the county is not, that's all well and good. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that's not what's going to make or break this project, right? We want to function ecologically. We want to earn credits over time so that it can serve as a permanent offset to unavoidable impacts within the watershed.
Ask who the primary client is right now.
Typically, it's NDOT. So
Specific to this, not typically.
I'm sorry.
Specific to this.
We don't have any.
City.
It's the bank.
Yeah.
Well, I thought they have somebody, don't they? No?
Like our
No, we're
jobs, we're
That's
looking
pretty high risk.
it's something that we take very seriously. We do an incredible amount of market research and otherwise to identify good areas to go site projects. So there's an economic supply demand analysis that we do, a cost benefit analysis that we do. We try to understand what future forward-looking demand. Maybe he mentioned the ILF. Historically, there's only been one other mitigation bank in the service area. They're sold out right now, and now the ILF is the only entity who can offset any mitigation in this area. They play by different rules than we do. We have to do advanced mitigation. So to your point about being risky, so we have to do all this and then hope that demand comes, and demand meaning like impacts to aquatic resources in the area. So it's certainly not for everyone, but it's something that we do nationwide. This in particular, this area, this watershed is one that historically has had a lot of development and a lot of impacts to aquatic resources. And what a mitigation bank, it sits higher in the hierarchy than ILF because we have to do our mitigation ahead of time. Mitigation being the restoration. So the offset has to be in the ground before anybody else can actually use it as an offset for their impact. So the temporal lag is much less. So it sits higher in the hierarchy because of that.
Question.
Correct.
Just out of curiosity, what's the range to buy an acre credit?
It depends. So the ILF right now is selling them in this area for I think about $90,000 a credit. Now we don't get
up though.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, they're proposing that because it's codified into law their pricing, so they have to follow a long process to actually increase their pricing, but they need to. That has been the pricing since June of 2018, since the inception of their program. And so, we'll see how it goes. There's a whole lot of capital investment that goes into these projects and a whole lot of risk up front. So, property ownership, restoration. We don't get one credit per acre, right? So we own about 150 acres here, and we're going to have about 80 credits, give or take. So about a 0.5 ratio. So there's a lot that goes into it. Chicago district in particular. So me personally, I'm in charge of Naturian West, which is the entire western half of the U.S. and a handful of states on the eastern side of the Mississippi as well. So I work in about 6 or 8 different core districts nationally. Chicago has some of the highest performance standards of any of the districts within which I operate for Naturian. So, for example, hydrology is actually a 2-year requirement, not a 1-year requirement where it is pretty much everywhere else nationally. So we have to have 2 documented years of 28 consecutive days meeting the requirements, which is a very high standard. And then all of their vegetative performance standards are very high as well. So takes a while to get the credits released. It takes a lot of adaptive management. All of these systems are living, breathing ecosystems, and so they've got to change. They change over time, and they're not a cookie cutter approach, and so we have to be willing and able to adapt to whatever the local situation is, so that we can make sure that the site performs.
Good. And maybe go ahead. You have.
I was just gonna say for our environmental consultant on Market Greenway, their in lieu fee credits were $195,000 per acre.
Can you say that again? What exactly is that?
Our environmental consultant reached out to Old City Light mitigation banks on in lieu fee credit prices, and it was $195,000 per acre.
For in lieu fee credit pricing?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have someone you're contracting with or consulting with already for the restoration and implementation of the work?
Not yet. So we'll put it out to bid. V3 out of Woodridge, Illinois, is who has designed this project for us. They've designed several in the Chicago District of Illinois. So they've designed this one here for us. We'll obviously bid it out to them, but we're required to bid out to multiple parties. So we'll see who it ultimately goes to. So it may end up being multiple subs. I can envision having a dirt moving contractor for the minor grading that we need to have done. But as far as all the seeding and the planting of the plugs, will more than likely be Loveless. We have a lot of continuity with them throughout the life cycle of all of our projects, and they've got a really good staff who does a lot of that work for us in the Midwest. So it'll probably be them.
I probably should have started this, but for comfort of the board members, the reason we suggested them go zoning, they could have gone to a use variance as well, but the permitted use for Greenway are very passive to a certain extent. Agricultural crop production, forestry farms, plant farms, raising farm and animals, sale of agriculture products, storage, conservation uses are conservancy and nature preserve, which this falls under that category. Public access for fishing, boating, a trail. Institutional uses, fishing pond, hiking trail, nature preserve or preserves, or a public park. And then it has a list of special exception uses. So if they want to put buildings and like out there, they would have to come to the BZA for special exception use for those, which it could be for utilities or telecommunication facility, environmental and atmosphere monitoring tower, low impact structure, nature center or parking lot, and a single family detached dwelling is allowed, but all those require Board of Zoning Appeals approval. So I think this zoning fits them nicely of our suite of zoning classes. So
Agreed.
they took us up on that suggestion. So, you have any questions of us?
This is the first time I've met with you all and done this. I'll be back on the 22nd.
You'll be here at the 22nd, this same room at 5:30 p.m. Chicago time.
Okay, very good. And as far as I've taken some notes here, but as far as action items and what I need to do in between now and then, is it possible to go back over those right here during the meeting, or can I meet with
this
you all
meeting here?
afterwards?
Afterwards, you can meet. And
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're prepared and we bring everything that everyone was asking for.
certainly, by all means.
Yeah, so okay.
Yeah, let's do that after we adjourn, and
Okay.
staff would be willing. We can go upstairs to the conference room if needed, if they've got the time. If not, we can schedule time for you to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right, so this is an informal review, so all we're giving you is a bunch of suggestions what you might face when you get to the plan commission. And I think the biggest thing I got a bunch of notes, but I think the biggest one I took on was a lot of the suggestions of the board members is maybe making some additional submittals, especially when it came to the hydraulics and hydrology and the tiles. I thought that was a good suggestion, and then the impact to the road as far as any drainage streams. So if you haven't done that, do so. I know you said pre-sent plans in, which we have on file, and you did send your permits from, I think, the Corps, IDEM, and stuff like that.
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
But yeah, this other stuff that came up, get that to us. And I think Kevin also sits on the planning commission. I think that would help him in his decision if he had comfort in those things to vote for the zone change. So we will see you on April 22nd.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up in general? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.